Guten Morgen, guten Tag, guten Abend. So today we have chapter 22, and this will just be all one video for chapter 22. It doesn't have any new material per se, it's just more ways to use the extended adjective constructions that we've been doing recently. So now hopefully you're feeling a little more comfortable with them, and then we can see how they're used in slightly different situations or ways where they might not be quite as obvious as the ways we were using them before. So the first type is without a limiting adjective. So that basically means without an article, without a possessive, without any word that comes before. We had like the numbers, like zwei, mention, two people, zwei would be the limiting adjective. So limiting adjective just is a number of things that come before nouns, mostly articles and possessives. And so most constructions without limiting adjectives involve plural nouns. So this is the same. We're talking about extended adjective constructions here, but this goes for any time you have something that doesn't have an article. So when you say like schwarze Katzen, black cats, it's plural and it doesn't have an article. It's very common to not have an article with plural nouns. But if you just say schwarze Katze, black cat in the singular, it sounds like it needs an article, a black cat or the black cat or my black cat or something. But so you often when there's no article, it's because it's a plural noun. And that is also going to be the case when we have extended adjective constructions with no article. So we can look at how that works. They often start with a preposition, just like any other extended adjective construction. Just like the other extended adjective constructions we've been looking at, they often begin with a preposition because prepositional phrases are commonly added to their common element of extended adjective constructions. So let's look at this one. An den Olympischen Spielen in London teilnehmender Sportler. So let's just look at the first part. In the Olympic Games in London, taking part athletes. So teilnehmen means to take part, and then an goes with it, teilnehmen an, which is to take part in. So in the Olympic Games in London, taking part athletes. So, or participating, participate in or take part in. So this first part is it's a subject of the sentence, and Sportler here is in the plural, athletes. You can't really see that it's in the plural because it doesn't have the ending doesn't change. This would look the same in the singular, but it is in the plural, and the big reason you can tell it's in the plural is because it doesn't have an article. So if it were singular, it would have to have an article of some kind, or else it would look weird. So what we have is athletes participate in the Olympic Games in London. So basically, we imagine we could have the same sentence but with an article. We could say die. Imagine if we added die to the beginning of the sentence. Die an den Olympischen Spielen in London teilnehmender Sportler. And that would just be like the athletes participate in the Olympic Games in London. So it would be the exact same thing, but with the at the beginning, and that's possible. But just because that's how plurals are, we're going to leave off the article, just like you would in English. We don't want to say the athletes because we just want to say athletes. We don't want to point to specific ones. We just want to leave it off. So in the same way, in German, you can leave it off, and then our extended adjective construction is basically it's the same as it would be otherwise, but it's a little harder to recognize because we were looking for an article and then some stuff that's not a noun, like prepositional phrase or more adjectives or adverbs. So the way we were recognizing the beginning of an extended adjective construction only works if there is an article, right? And since in some cases, especially with the plural, there is no article, then it's important to get used to this way to do it when there's no article, right? And then the second part, repräsentieren den Frieden liebende Menschen aus aller Welt. This is very similar to when we had from last time peace loving. So it's literally just peace loving, Frieden liebende Menschen aus aller Welt. Yeah, and so because peace is, in this case, it's just like there's no article. Den actually goes with mention, right? So there's no article. So luckily that one looks just like English. But it's the same concept where mention is plural. So there's no article with that one, and then you end up with this extended adjective construction that may be hard to recognize. Okay, let's look at this one. Aus den alten Mythen entsprungene Träume von Ruhm und Ehre. So let's just do that first part. Dreams of fame and glory stemming from the ancient myths. Okay, so this is dreams of fame and glory. Träume von Ruhm und Ehre. Dreams of fame and glory. And then we want to say stemming from the ancient myths. So aus, entspringen means to stem from, to come from, right? So from the ancient myths, stemming from dreams, or it's past tense, so having sprung from, right? And sprungen is actually past tense, but here in the translation it says stemming in the present tense. I guess it doesn't make that much of a difference, but it really should be past. So having stemmed from ancient myths, dreams of fame and glory having stemmed from the ancient myths, but then it doesn't sound great, but technically this is the past. And then we have, so basically Träume is plural, so there's no article at the beginning of all this. And then we have mischen sich mit, so that's mix with, mischen sich mit. And then ganz pragmatischen, and then Hoffnungen, so pragmatic, completely pragmatic hopes. That's what we're going to deal with in our after the verb. And then we want to describe the completely pragmatic hopes with an extended adjective construction. Auf wertvolle Werbeverträge ausgerichtete. So aimed at valuable advertising contracts. So ausgerichtet, aimed, and then auf, at, and then wertvolle, valuable, and then Werbeverträge, advertising contracts. Yeah. So you can see in this case, both of these, Träume and Hoffnungen, those are both plural. So the adjective constructions that precede them, they don't have any articles because we just wouldn't use an article on this anyway. And so it looks like the sentence just begins with a prepositional phrase, and then it doesn't, and then you don't know where it's going, right? And so the more you get used to extended adjective constructions, the more you'll be able to tell that that's what you're dealing with here, instead of just the sentence beginning with a normal. This is not a normal prepositional phrase. It's encapsulated within an extended adjective construction, so you can't just translate it as if it were a normal prepositional phrase beginning the sentence. Yeah. And then we have extended adjective constructions introduced by a preposition followed by another preposition. So we're getting deep into the extended adjective constructions. It's basically in, well, let's just look at this example. Das letzte Kapitel handelt von aus der Tiefe des Planeten hervorquellenden Rauchwolken. So it's like Inception, right? You get deeper. There's some embedded ones as well. Yeah, there's embedded ones later. So we have the last chapter, das letzte Kapitel, handelt von, deals with, aus der Tiefe des Planeten hervorquellenden Rauchwolken. So we're talking about the smoke clouds, Rauchwolken, smoke clouds. And what it is about the smoke clouds, they come out of the depths of the planet. They spring forth. Oh, belching, yeah. I'd say Quelle is a spring or a source. So belching forth or coming out as a spring, right? So belching is fine. Then we have smoke clouds belching forth from the depths of the planet. So basically, it deals with handelt von. Now we're already inside a prepositional phrase, and inside that prepositional phrase, our extended adjective construction is going to describe the object of the preposition, which is fine. The object of the preposition is a noun. You can describe any noun with an extended adjective construction, just like you can describe any noun with an adjective, right? So basically, the thing to note about this is that you end up with two prepositions next to each other, because you start your prepositional phrase, and then often your extended adjective construction also begins with a prepositional phrase. So then you end up with von and aus right next to each other, and that can be confusing. So that's why whenever you think you're dealing with an extended adjective construction, it's important to just bracket it off and then first translate the outer part, von Rauchwolken, with smoke clouds, and then get to the inner part with the extended adjective construction, and then move along with that. Der Naturheilpraktiker arbeitet ausschließlich mit in der Natur vorkommenden Heilmitteln. So the alternative practitioner, arbeitet ausschließlich, works exclusively. All right, that's all word for word, right? Mit, same as English, and then we've got our extended adjective construction in der Natur vorkommenden, which is occurring naturally in nature. It's a present participle, so occurring in nature, yeah. Occurring in nature, and then remedies, right? Healing, means of healing, Heilmittel remedies. So the alternative practitioner works exclusively with in nature occurring remedies, which is a little clunky in English, so you say with remedies that occur in nature, or occurring in nature, you could also say. So the thing is, since our extended adjective construction is describing a something within a prepositional phrase, it's describing the object of the preposition, you end up with mit, the preposition, and in, a preposition, right next to each other, which can be a little weird. But then once you learn to draw the brackets in the right place, then you can see that they're actually separate from each other. Even though they're right next to each other in the sentence, grammatically they're in separate constructions, so they don't mess with each other too much. And then we have participles used as nouns. So, das in der Schule vor vielen Jahren gelernte. So, a few chapters ago, we learned to say das Gelernte, that what was learned, or what was learned. You can take this past participle and turn it into a noun to say, like, that which was whatever, right? So, that which was learned, or what was learned. And then you can, just like any noun, you can use an extended adjective construction to further describe it. So, what was learned, das Gelernte, and then we go into the adjective construction. So, what was learned many years ago, in school many years ago. Yeah, you can do the same order for that. What was learned many years ago? What was learned in school many years ago? Das Gelernte, but then das in der Schule vor vielen Jahren Gelernte. Yeah. And then we learned that you could do something like das Gesagte, what was said, or that which was said. And so you can, of course, add in a little adjective construction to further describe it. Das auf Seite 26 Gesagte, that what was said on page 26, or that which was said on page 26. And then we have extended adjectives plus unextended adjectives. So it's a combination of a regular adjective and an extended adjective construction. So when you encounter a series of adjectives that includes both extended and unextended adjectives, participles, that's just regular ones, right, before a noun, translate the unextended adjectives as a unit with the noun before you translate the extended construction. So just deal with the normal adjectives first and then deal with the extended adjective construction. Note that unextended adjectives remain with the noun outside of the brackets in the examples below. So yeah, we've got two things going on here. Dieses, this, that's our limiting adjective or just our article. And then für den Präsidenten schwierige, for the president difficult, as in which is difficult for the president. And then we've got a regular adjective, militärische, military, as an adjective, right? And then Aufgabe, task or mission. So what's going to happen here is you're not, Aufgabe, this extended adjective construction is describing Aufgabe. So normally this bracket would go all the way up to the Aufgabe, right? But we've got another just normal adjective hanging out here. And so when you translate it, it comes out best if you just treat the regular adjective and the noun as one unit, And then after you've done those, go back into the extended adjective construction. Because the thing is, it's easy to sort of look at these schwierige and militärische. It looks like those are just two regular adjectives sitting next to each other, but when you understand what the sentence means, you see that this is schwierige is part of the construction, and militärische is just describing Aufgabe, the mission, right? So it's like, what is schwierig even doing? What difficult? Difficult for whom? Difficult for the president. So it's not that we're saying that the mission was the military mission was difficult. We're emphasizing that it was difficult for the president, was difficult for him. So this all belongs together. So we say, this military mission, diese militärische Aufgabe. So then we'll pick up the extended adjective construction, which is or was difficult for the president. You would know is or was based on what's going on in the rest of the sentence. This is just a part of a sentence. Okay, let's try. Die, so die im Lande herrschenden politischen und sozialen Zustände, the political and social conditions prevailing in the country. So you see the political and social conditions, die politischen und sozialen Zustände. So politisch and sozial, both of those adjectives are just normal adjectives, and they go with Zustände, conditions. And then we have our construction here, and it's set off from the other, because what are the conditions? They are political and social conditions, right? That are also prevail in the country, but they're not related to this, right? So you need to translate first these along with the noun, and then the construction after. Political and social conditions prevailing in the country, or that prevail in the country. Okay, it's that dominate, herrschen we had before, right? That prevail in the country, that exist in the country, that dominate in the country. Okay, let's look at this one. Let's just ignore the construction real quick. Die lustigen Geschichten, the funny stories. So that's the first part you translate, right? But then you look at zum ersten Mal in diesem Buch erzählten with the ending. So for the first time told in this book, or told for the first time in this book. So die lustigen Geschichten, that belongs, lustig belongs to the stories, right? If you think about, like, the stories are funny, but it's a separate thing. The stories are both funny, and also they are told for the first time in this book. And those are both descriptions of the stories, but lustig doesn't belong to this. It's a separate description of the stories, right? So that's why it's outside of the brackets. Okay, yeah, so that's that one. Even if the unextended modifier precedes the extended modifier with a comma, separating the two modifiers, translate as above. So, die lustigen, yeah, so sometimes you get die lustigen, and then your extended adjective construction, and then the noun. So the funny story is told in this book for the first time. It's the exact same translation. Yeah. So either way, you may encounter it either way. Both ways are correct in German, and so you'll end up with the same translation for both of those. Then we have multiple extended adjectives. So this is just when you've got several of these in a row, which can certainly happen in German, because Germans are so used to these, especially in academic writing. But in English, it gets to be starts to sound clunky real quick if you try to translate them word for word, especially when there is more than one in a row. This one has 3 in a row. So, dieser mit vielen Ehren in Deutschland ausgezeichnete, aus seiner Heimat geflüchtete, jetzt in den USA lebende, große Filmregisseur war einer der Gründer der heutigen Filmindustrie. So it's not really different from the ones we've been doing before. It's just that there are 3 of them in a row. So it makes it a little harder to translate. This great film director. So now that we've bracketed them, we can say this, and then great film director. Dieser große Filmregisseur. So there's our subject. And then basically you're going to want to put all of these into normally you would put them into relative clauses, but sometimes you get so many relative clauses that it starts to sound like not good English. So you may need to just separate some sentences out. So this great film director, who had received many honors in Germany, so that's what this one, mit vielen Ehren in Deutschland ausgezeichnete. So we're keeping this first one. The first one has become a relative clause. And then we're just going to finish the sentence and ignore the other ones. So the last part of the sentence, we're going to just go ahead and finish the sentence and come back to those others. So it says, was one of the founders of the contemporary film industry. War einer der Gründer der heutigen Filmindustrie. So was one of the founders of contemporary film industry. So now we finish the sentence. But we still have two extended adjective constructions we have not addressed. So we're just going to make them make them another sentence with two clauses. So, aus seiner Heimat geflüchtete, which means he, fled from his home or his native country. So he fled from his native country. Just make it into a whole sentence. And then jetzt in den USA lebend, now living in the U.S. And you just say is now living in the United States. So these two, aus seiner Heimat geflüchtete, jetzt in den USA lebende has now, you've just taken the liberty to make full sentences out of those if there's too many in a row. Okay. Der Film bietet ein ausgezeichnetes, auf der Wahrheit basierendes Bild der von bestem Idealismus getragenen Leidenschaft des ehemaligen Nobelpreisträgers. So, let's look at the subject of the sentence. Der Film, that's just the subject. That's easy enough. The movie, right? Bietet, presents or offers. The film offers, the film presents. Ein ausgezeichnetes, an excellent, that's a normal adjective. But then we're gonna have an extended construction before we get to our noun. So, auf der Wahrheit basierendes, so based on a true story, right? Or based on reality. So a picture that is based on a true story, based on truth, you could say. And then now we're going into a genitive construction, because you can tell der plus a feminine thing is going to be a genitive. But before we get to our noun, we're going to do another extended adjective construction. So a picture of the suffering. Here we have suffering, and then here it's described as the suffering born of the best idealism, von bestem Idealismus getragenen. It's like carried by the best idealism. And then des ehemaligen, so then we have des ehemaligen Nobelpreisträgers. This is actually where the end of the sentence, but we're going to go ahead and separate out this, whichever extended adjective construction seems like the clunkiest, just take it out and put in the next sentence. So, auf der Wahrheit basierendes, we're just going to take that out and make it the next sentence. So that way we only have one extended adjective construction in the sentence. That means we only have to make one relative clause. So the film presents an excellent picture. An excellent picture. So we've skipped this extended adjective construction completely. The film offers or presents an excellent picture of the Nobel Prize recipients suffering. This genitive is represented in the apostrophe s there, right? And then born of the best idealism is von bestem Idealismus getragenen. So then we're done with that, but then we realize we haven't done auf der Wahrheit basierendes, and then we just change that into a whole sentence. This picture is based on truth. Okay, now we can do extended adjective constructions with zu and present participle. So this is a little bit like we had ist/war plus zu, like die Aufgabe ist zu schreiben. The homework is to be is to be written, right? Or the assignment is to be written. So we were doing something quite like this just a couple of chapters ago, and you can also do this with extended adjective constructions. So you have zu plus a present participle is like to be, can be, maybe, must be. So die zu schreibende Aufgabe. So we had before die Aufgabe ist zu schreiben would be the assignment must be written or is to be written, right? So it's the same idea, except for we're doing this as a participle instead of just as an infinitive, right? So die zu schreibende Aufgabe, the assignment to be written, the assignment that must be written. The to write assignment, right? The assignment to be written. Yeah, but we want a participle here. So because that's the adjective, we want it to be an adjective. So the participle is how we make an adjective out of a verb, right? Okay, so then we have die für morgen vorzubereitende Aufgabe. So we're using our present participle, and then the present participle is an adjective, and so we want to add whatever else we want to add, like for tomorrow, and then of course it's got an ending because it's an adjective. So the assignment to be prepared for tomorrow, the for tomorrow to be prepared assignment. And then die in unserem Museum zu sehenden Kunstwerke, the works of art that can be seen in our museum. So the in our museum to be seen artworks, or the art, which is of course not a very good translation because you need to change it into a relative clause. The works of art that can be seen in our museum. So you note that the present participle verbs with separable prefixes, vorbereiten, and then of course, as you would expect, the zu goes in there just like every other time that we have a zu in dealing with a verb. It's the same principle. If you have an infinitive, vorzubereiten, and it also happens here with the present participle, vorzubereitend. Yeah. Okay, so then we have extended adjective constructions within the extended adjective constructions. This is the inception part I was talking about, where you have this construction inside the construction. And this is maybe the most difficult thing to translate in all of German language. So we've come quite a long way since the beginning of the term. So when you come to the signal for the second extended adjective construction, usually a preposition after a limiting adjective like we've always been doing, right? That's usually the signal. Set it off with a second set of brackets. Translate the second construction after the first one. So, die während der Nacht mit dem aus Frankreich kommenden Zug eingetroffenen Touristen fanden keine Unterkunft. So what are we dealing with? Die Touristen, the tourists. So we translate that first, right? And so it's like the during the night on the from France coming train, tourists, yeah, who arrived during the night on the train coming from France. Yeah, eingetroffen is then the arrived. That's another word for arrived, right? So the during the night on the coming from France train arrived tourists did not find any lodgings. So of course that word order is not very nice in English. So we're going to use the relative clauses, right? But we need to think about which is which. So you say the tourists who arrived during the night. So während der Nacht mit dem Zug eingetroffenen. So the outer, the one that begins first, that's the first one that you're going to translate. So während der Nacht mit dem Zug eingetroffenen. That's the one that starts first. So that's who arrived during the night. And then after that, we're going to translate the inner construction, which is on the train, or train coming from France. Yeah. So aus dem Frankreich kommenden, coming from France, and then we're done with those, and then we're going to just finish with our verb and direct object. Let's look at this one. Die wegen der in London stattfindenden Olympiade überfüllten Hotels. So let's just stop there. The hotels, right? It's just the hotels. That's going to be the subject. Now, what about these hotels? We're going to get more information about these hotels. So, wegen der Olympiade überfüllt, because of the Olympics overfilled, overbooked. So, the hotels overbooked because of the Olympics. And then we're going to take care of our second adjective construction in taking place in London. It's because this in London stattfinden, that describes Olympiade. The reason you have one inside the other is because, first of all, you want to describe hotels, and then you want to also, we have nouns inside of our extended adjective construction, and we want to describe those nouns as well. So this noun Olympiade inside the adjective construction also has its own adjective construction to describe it. So the hotels which were overbooked because of the Olympics taking place in London. That's that whole first part, up to hotels, right? Versuchten, tried. That's the verb, versuchten. And then we have another one, den Gästen, and zu helfen, den Gästen zu helfen, to help the guests. And then what about these guests? Let's describe them. Ohne Reservierungen angereisten. These guests arrived. They arrived without reservations. So they tried to help the visitors who arrived without reservations. Vernünftige, preiswerte und von den Sportzentren nicht zu weit entfernte Alternative zu finden. So we want to help. They tried to help these visitors or these guests, and then they also, what did they try to help them do? They tried to help them find reasonable and inexpensive alternatives. What kind of alternatives? How are we describing them? Und von den Sportzentren nicht zu weit entfernte. So reasonable, inexpensive alternatives that weren't too far away from the sports venues. Reasonable, inexpensive, and not too far away from the sport venues removed. Not too far away from them. Entfernt is removed, but far away already it sort of describes that, so you can kind of leave it out. To find those alternatives. Okay, so getting practice in recognizing signals, such as preposition followed by an article followed by another preposition, like die, wegen, der, in London. Article, preposition, will help alert you to these fairly rare constructions. Isolate the separate extended construction with brackets and translate them only after translating the sentence element that they are modifying. Yeah, so do like the outside parts and then the brackets after. Yeah, so they're fairly rare, but if you come across one, you will now have the tools, hopefully, to break it down and feel confident translating. So that is Kapitel 22, and of course we will have the end of chapter exercises with some pretty complex sentences for you to work through. So good luck with those, and I will see you on Zoom soon, and please let me know whatever questions you have about all of these. Und wir sehen uns im nächsten Video. Tschüss, auf Wiedersehen, mach's gut.